The elk does something no Yellowstone biologist expects. It runs toward the wolves. Dr. Aaron Cole watches through a spotting scope as a young cow elk crosses the Lamar Valley, snow breaking around her knees. A wolf pack waits near the river, already visible against the white. Any elk with a choice should turn away. This one keeps coming. Then the hillside behind her begins to move. 6 lean shapes separate from the trees, each marked in black, rust, gold, and white. Their oversized ears remain fixed on the elk. They do not howl. They exchange high, bird-like calls and spread across her trail. The wolves rise. The elk has not chosen safety. It has chosen the predator it understands. African wild dogs have been released into Yellowstone. Not one escaped zoo animal, but a functioning pack. Adults that already know one another, hunt together, share food, and protect their young. Someone has opened transport crates beside a remote park road and abandoned the tracking equipment in the snow. By the time rangers find the site, the dogs have entered one of the most complete and heavily observed predator communities in North America. Online, the question appears immediately. Wolves versus painted dogs. Who wins? Nature asks a colder question. Can the newcomers stay alive long enough for a fight to matter? African wild dogs, also called painted dogs, are cooperative hunters. A pack revolves around a breeding pair and an extended family that raises pups, guards dens, and shares food. Their success comes from social cohesion, endurance, and the ability to exploit confusion in a herd. But the famous claim that they succeed in more than 80% of all hunts is not a universal law. Success changes with habitat, prey, pack size, age, and what researchers count as an attempt. Modern tracking has shown that wild dogs may launch many short chases, most of which fail, while still gaining enough food through multiple opportunities. They are efficient, not supernatural. Yellowstone would test every limit behind that efficiency. The park is not an empty stage occupied by wolves and elk. It contains grizzly and black bears, cougars, coyotes, foxes, wolverines, eagles, bison, deer, moose, pronghorn, and people. Each predator already knows when to defend a carcass and when to surrender it. Each prey species has learned the terrain through generations of migration, snowfall, fire, and predation. The painted dogs arrive with no such map. Their first hunt begins well. The elk Aaron is watching has already been weakened by winter. The dogs pressure her from behind, but deep snow breaks their rhythm. Their long legs help on open ground, yet their small bodies sink where wind has piled the drifts. The wolves do not charge the dogs. They angle toward the elk. For several minutes, 2 hunting systems overlap. The dogs create movement. The wolves read it. When the elk turns near the river, a wolf closes from the side and brings her down. The painted dogs stop beyond the carcass. They are fast enough to arrive, hungry enough to challenge, and too small to control what happens next. One wolf advances. The dogs retreat. This is not cowardice. In Africa, wild dogs survive beside heavier competitors by avoiding fights that can erase an entire pack. Lions kill them. Hyenas steal from them and can kill them. Their social bonds make the pack powerful, but those same bonds make every adult valuable. A broken leg, torn shoulder, or dead breeder can end more than one life. Against Yellowstone wolves, large canids adapted to snow, cold, territorial defense, and killing large ungulates, the newcomers would rarely choose a prolonged battle. Their speed would not let them skim magically across deep snow. Their calls would not bypass wolf hearing. If trapped in a direct confrontation, numbers and terrain would matter, but a painted dog's safest tactic would usually be escape. The wolves win the carcass. The dogs learn the first rule of Yellowstone. Making a kill and keeping it are different skills. Their second lesson comes after dark. The temperature falls far below anything the released pack has experienced in captivity. Painted dogs can huddle and shelter together, but social warmth is not a substitute for the dense coat, body mass, fat reserves, circulation, and seasonal behavior of northern mammals. Their large ears, useful for releasing heat in warmer environments, expose more surface area to the cold. Snowpacks between their toes. Every calorie spent staying warm is a calorie unavailable for travel, healing, or milk. They shelter in timber beneath an uprooted tree. By morning, one older male has stopped moving. The death changes the pack's calculations. Large prey carries high risk, and every lost carcass wastes energy. The dogs shift towards smaller targets and favorable ground. They follow wind-scoured ridges, south-facing slopes, road corridors, and areas where geothermal warmth reduces snow. They test mule deer, pronghorn, hares, and weakened elk calves, rather than healthy adult bison or the strongest elk. This flexibility keeps them alive. It also brings them closer to visitors. A snow coach group sees the pack trotting beside a plowed road and records the first clear footage. The animals look impossibly bright against the snow, like pieces of an African sunrise moving through a monochrome world. The clip reaches millions of viewers before park officials confirm what it shows. Half the audience calls for rescue. The other half wants to see the battle. Wildlife managers cannot treat the dogs as ordinary invaders. African wild dogs are endangered in their native range. Every healthy breeding animal carries conservation value. But Yellowstone is protected partly because its native ecological processes remain unusually intact. Allowing a deliberately released foreign predator to establish would turn the park into an uncontrolled experiment conducted on wildlife that never consented to it. Capture teams are mobilized. The task appears simple. The dogs travel as a group, are visible on snow, and use open country. But a pack can cover enormous distances, change direction rapidly, and vanish into timber. A helicopter can locate them, but risks driving them toward roads or exhausting already stressed animals. Darting one dog may scatter the rest. An immobilized animal can disappear into deep snow or freezing water before a team reaches it. Erin proposes a different method. Follow their hunger. She maps every reported sighting, wolf kill, winter range, and sheltered drainage. The dogs are not moving randomly. They avoid the center of active wolf territories after losing 2 meals. They circle the edges, where coyotes and solitary scavengers are easier to displace. Rather than conquering the wolves, they are being shaped by them. The first true competitor they pressure is the coyote. Yellowstone coyotes are smaller than wolves and often forage alone or in pairs, though groups may gather. Painted dogs could dominate some encounters through numbers. They might steal a carcass, drive coyotes from a feeding site, or kill one that fails to escape. Yet coyotes possess advantages the newcomers lack. Knowledge of every drainage, tolerance of cold, a broad diet, and the ability to survive on rodents and carrion when large prey is scarce. The dogs win confrontations. The coyotes survive the season. Cougars present another mismatch. A cougar is a solitary ambush hunter that often caches an elk or deer beneath debris and returns to feed. A large dog pack might locate the carcass and force the cat to withdraw. But searching specifically for the cougar and surrounding its tree for hours would waste energy the dogs cannot afford. The cat can climb, use cliffs, or wait in terrain where group pursuit becomes difficult. It may also ambush a dog moving alone. The interactions would be opportunistic, not a permanent war. Then, a grizzly emerges early from a den and takes the dog's first major elk kill. The pack is chased through thin snow for miles. They feed for only minutes before the bear arrives. No tactical formation changes the result. The dogs scatter as the grizzly claims more meat than it can immediately consume. Ravens descend. Coyotes wait outside the bear's reach. A bald eagle tears at the open carcass. The kill becomes a Yellowstone meal, distributed through a network that existed before the newcomers arrived. For the painted dogs, it is an energetic disaster. High hunting success means little if larger carnivores repeatedly take the reward. The pack must hunt again before it has recovered. That creates the most plausible pressure on elk. Not an invincible new predator killing everything, but a hungry pack forced to make more attempts because it cannot retain enough food. Even then, Yellowstone's elk would not simply stand and die. Many migrate with seasons and snow depth. Healthy adults can defend themselves, change elevation, join larger groups, or use terrain that disrupts a chase. Bison are extraordinarily dangerous. Moose can kick and strike. The African strategy evolved around different prey communities, and every failed approach becomes a lesson purchased with energy. Spring improves the dog's chances. Snow retreats from lower valleys. Temperatures rise. Hoofed animals give birth. For a brief period, vulnerable young appear across the landscape, and the pack's speed becomes more useful. The dogs begin bringing down calves and deer. Their coats no longer look like warning flags against snow. In broken grass and timber shadow, the pattern becomes camouflage. Aaron's map expands. Now the threat is no longer immediate winter death. It is reproduction. The dominant female begins searching for a den. If she raises pups, Yellowstone will contain animals born into the cold. Individuals that learn wolf boundaries, migration routes, roads, and human schedules from their first weeks of life. They will not be genetically transformed into Arctic canids, but behavior learned within a generation can make a population far more difficult to capture. Managers race to locate the den before the female gives birth. At the same time, the pack encounters the enemy no camera can photograph: pathogens. African wild dogs are vulnerable to rabies and canine distemper. A closely social pack creates many opportunities for infection to move between individuals. Yellowstone wolves, coyotes, foxes, and nearby domestic dogs belong to a diseased network unfamiliar to the released animals. The newcomers may arrive carrying pathogens of their own or encounter local strains without useful immunity. One dog begins coughing, another falls behind. Field teams collect scat and saliva from an abandoned resting site. The initial test suggests canine distemper, but confirmation takes time. If the result is positive, the release threatens more than prey. It could introduce or amplify disease across canid populations, turning an animal rescue operation into a biosecurity emergency. The park closes a section of road. Rumors fill the information gap. Some people claim officials plan to shoot every dog. Others insist wolves have already been poisoned to guarantee a painted dog victory. Protesters gather at an entrance, while online accounts post the den's rumored location. Visitors follow rumors into the backcountry, and supporters leave food near suspected travel routes. Aaron realizes the animals are now in greater danger from fascination than from fear. Each encounter risks teaching the dogs that humans provide meals. Habituation would change the management decision. An endangered animal that avoids people can potentially be captured and relocated. A pack that approaches roads, camps, or buildings creates an immediate safety problem. Compassion without distance may force the lethal outcome supporters are trying to prevent. The den is finally found in a sheltered slope beyond the Lamar River. Thermal imagery reveals the female inside and adults resting nearby. No pups are visible yet. The capture plan calls for removing the outer pack first, then immobilizing the breeding female before she can retreat into passages too narrow for handlers. Weather closes in before the operation begins. A late spring storm covers the valley. Wind erases tracks and grounds the helicopter. Wolves from a neighboring territory move toward an elk carcass less than a mile from the den. The painted dogs detect them and gather, not to wage war, but to draw the larger canids away from the breeding female. Aaron watches the two packs meet through blowing snow. The wolves advance together, The dogs break apart, rushing just close enough to hold attention, then turning downhill. Their agility buys seconds, not victory. One young dog slips on crusted snow.
A wolf catches it before the others can return.
The painted dogs flee. The wolves do not lose their territory. The invaders do not overthrow Yellowstone's reigning canids. The encounter ends, as such mismatches often do, quickly, violently, and without symbolism. But the diversion works. When the storm clears, the den is empty. The female has moved. Tracks lead toward a geothermal basin where warm ground keeps patches of snow thin. Steam conceals the route, and mineral crust makes pursuit dangerous. The park's famous heat, an attraction to millions of visitors, has become temporary shelter for an animal built for another continent. The pack survives into summer. Its ecological effect remains smaller and more complicated than the internet predicted. Wolves still kill elk, bears steal carcasses, and cougars hunt from cover.
The painted dogs take young ungulates and smaller prey while occupying gaps between established territories. There is no instant trophic cascade. Yellowstone is not a line of dominoes. Vegetation responds to water, climate, fire, herbivory, beavers, bison, elk movements, and many predators at once. Adding wild dogs would alter parts of that system. But anyone claiming to know the final landscape after a few months would be telling a story, not doing ecology. The greatest change occurs outside the food web. Managers must patrol roads, search for dens, test disease samples, coordinate veterinary care, and prevent intentional feeding. Visitors arrive expecting a gladiator match between two canids. Every painted dog sighting pulls people into already crowded wildlife corridors. The cost of one illegal release spreads through budgets, research programs, native animals, and human behavior. By early autumn, capture teams have recovered most of the original pack. The animals are quarantined and assessed for relocation to accredited conservation facilities. 2 died during winter. 1 was killed by wolves. Another vanished beyond the northern park boundary. The breeding female remains missing. Erin returns to the hillside where she first saw the elk run toward wolves. Frost has begun whitening the grass. A remote camera sends a delayed image from a wooded drainage miles away. The female crosses first. Behind her come 4 pups, their oversized ears rising above the autumn brush. They stop at a wolf scent mark. The mother smells it, turns, and leads them in the opposite direction. They have not conquered Yellowstone. They have begun learning how not to lose. If an endangered predator were illegally released into Yellowstone, should officials remove it at any cost to protect the native ecosystem? Or preserve every animal even if that allowed the population to spread? Tell us which responsibility comes first in the comments. Subscribe to What If Animals and watch the next scenario, because survival does not always belong to the strongest predator. Sometimes it belongs to the one that learns where the stronger predator will not go.